Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to a very, very, very special edition of the Seaman Cinema Sit Down. You know the drill. Pull up a chair, take a seat, and you know what? Get comfortable, because we're going to be here a little longer than normal. We're going to go chill in the comic book corner, because today marks 18 days from Avengers Infinity War, which means the Seaman is going to take you on an 18-movie adventure over the next 18 days and chronicle all 18 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And we're going to do it a little differently than the way it was given to us. We are going to watch this chronologically, which means we are going to start with my man Cap, the very first Avenger. So you know the drill. I like to start the bad end with the good. This is going to be spoiler-filled. I mean, the movie's been out since 2011. If you haven't seen it, sorry? What rock have you been under while Marvel's dominating the world? But I do want to start with a couple bad things. Not a huge fan of the montages. There's a bunch of them in this movie. And specifically, it's the montages that follow the Bucky rescue. I would have liked to have seen that group work together on one contained mission that kind of leads to them going after Red Skull. Than watching this montage. The montage works, and it's put together very well. There's tons of great action in the montage, but something cohesive and kind of all congruent, where you could have seen him and Bucky working side by side longer, because obviously the scene we get with them, Bucky flies out a train, man, and it's a cool sequence. You know, we'll jump ahead a little bit. That sequence is kind of cool because it feels very video game-like, and Joe Johnston does a bunch of cool things in this movie. Visually, the way he shoots it, the way he uses special effects, the way Cap moves, the way practical effects. There's tons of explosions in this movie, and gunfire, and all of it just works. Great job on the production team side. But montage just didn't really do it for me. I could have used just one badass scene, kind of like how Winter Soldier starts. So yeah, I mean, not a huge gripe, but just something that didn't kind of work for me the very first time I saw it, and still kind of just rubs at me a little bit. And then the big one. This is the big problem with this movie. And it drives me nuts because there's another character who this happens to, and it works every time. When Cap goes from little Steve Rogers to Captain America-sized Steve Rogers, his pants don't rip. And all they do is just shrink a little bit. There needed to be tears or something, man. My man Chris Evans got 3 times the leg size of the skinny body double they used for little Steve Rogers. But when that's your biggest gripe, you've probably done a lot of good things in a movie. And I've already mentioned a few of them. Obviously, visual effects are phenomenal in this movie. The way Steve moves, the way Cap moves, and Steve and Cap are the same person, so the way they move is the same. The way the shield moves when he's throwing it around, all that stuff just looks so clean, and it looks so realistic. Like I said, very tight choreographing in all of the action sequences, and it all just works really well. But the biggest thing that I love, and I love it because of where I'm watching this movie, and this is why I think Kevin Feige might be a bigger genius than we realize. Moving Captain America, the first Avenger, all the way up to the beginning, rather than movie 5 or 6, really changes the landscape and kind of starts to set up things way differently. Iron Man worked very well, obviously. It started something that has been going 10 years strong now. But you make Captain America the first, there's a ton of world building going on, and it happens right before Avengers, so a lot of it makes sense. But, for instance, we start with the Tesseract. Now make that the first thing that we start with, and all of a sudden, the journey we're going on is more defined and much bigger than we realized with just Iron Man. It's the reason I love watching this chronologically. Red Skull mentions Asgardians. He mentions Odin when he says the Tesseract is the jewel of Odin's treasure room. You meet Howard Stark, which is awesome because you get to see him interact with Cap, and Dominic Cooper does such a good job. You know, he really does remind you a lot of Tony in a lot of ways. And the way him and Cap interact kind of reminds you of how Cap feels about Tony. Not a surprise, because when Cap went frozen, he woke up and Tony's almost the same age as his pops. But Dominic Cooper does an awesome job with Howard Stark. The Stark Expo is cool because we get to see the giant globe that is a major player in Iron Man 2. We get to see the original Torch costume pop in there. I mean, everything, they littered this movie with all sorts of nice little things if you're paying attention. But like I said, I mean, that world building stuff works so much better with this being the first movie than being the sixth movie. I'm thinking that the way they built this when they built it, Kevin Feige was probably going, there's probably a nerd or two out there, maybe one named the Seaman, and he's going to watch this chronologically. I'm going to make his head explode. So yeah, I love having Cap first, because it really sets a different tone for the journey that we're about to take over the next 10 years. And there's just, there's great action throughout the whole movie. The very, very first Steve Rogers Captain America sequence we get after he becomes huge is brilliant. I love that he doesn't quite know how to run or do things in this body because it's bigger, but as he starts to get it, he's running, he's moving real good, and then he crashes through a storefront window. And then he figures it out, and he kind of figures it out quickly, and it's kind of cool to watch because he seems out of sorts with his body, and then it all kind of hones back in, and it just works really well. There's a real cool sequence in there, too, where he uses a car door as a shield, and there's a massive star right in the middle. The cab company, I think it's like Star Cabs, but it's almost like he's using a star and logoed shield with the cab door. Foreshadowing. Just brilliant. Something I never picked up on, but noticed this time around. So cool. When they're out there saving Bucky, I mean, the way he just is moving through guys, and he uses his shield, the way he throws his shield to take out like 4 guys in a row. All the action sequences in this movie are awesome. Love the ending action sequence with it's just him and Red Skull in the plane. Everything about that, whether it's making sure he's saving New York and going after the guy who's flying the bomb, and making the bomb crash back in after he takes that guy out, and then just him and Red Skull floating around as the ship kind of turns. All of it's so cool. Just well executed stuff. So you move away from just the action sequences and stuff, and what else do you need? You're gonna find, Guardians of the Galaxy and now Thor Ragnarok have really kind of honed in as and Ant-Man have honed in as like the comedy movies, but there is fantastic humor all through Captain America, man. Just little things just dropped here and there, and I was laughing so much more in this movie than I ever realized. For one, like one of my favorite moments, and it's gonna become a trend, I think, as we watch these movies. When Cap goes to jump out the airplane when he's going to save everybody, he tells Haley Atwell's Peggy Carter, book it on home, and she goes, you can't tell me what to do, and he's like, the hell I can't, I'm a captain. And then he's out the window, out the door of the airplane. Just little things like that just make you giggle. Stanley Tucci, who plays Dr. Abraham Erskine, when he's having one of his first interactions with Cap right before the procedure, he sits down, he's like, it's time for us to have drinks. Pours out a couple drinks. He goes, ooh, why am I giving you a drink? You have a procedure tomorrow. I'll just drink all of it. Like little things like that just make you laugh. And they're sprinkled throughout the whole movie way more than I realized. I love the humor in this movie. Cap works so well because he's out of sorts in a bunch of different spots, being Cap. But there's tons of funny stuff in it, and I love all of it. So then, when you have all that, then it's really all about your cast. When everything else is working, cast has to be strong, and we start with Chris Evans, who was born to play Captain America. He was born to be a superhero. It's not his first, but his second. He was the original. He was the Human Torch, which is funny because the Human Torch shows up in the Stark Expo suit. Oh man, put him together. But Chris Evans, he plays the character brilliantly. He just knows who Cap is, and he understands, who Cap is. And we get to understand who Cap is right away. And I love that. He just establishes that he is a good human person who wants to do good things. He's trying so hard to get into the army. He throws down random towns like Patterson or Hoboken. There's a couple Jersey shout-outs in this movie that I loved. But yeah, just anything he can get to get himself in so that he can serve his country. Because he loves his country and he wants to serve his country. just the way that, like, when Bucky's like, oh man, there's so many women, and Cap's like, yeah, I just want one. You really get this feeling that he's a wholesome, good human being. And that's the reason he becomes Captain America, man, is that heart. Stanley Tucci recognizes it, puts him through, and then that leads to tons of great stuff. So much of the humor in this movie lands in the first act, because Cap is not built to be in the army. And he's always falling behind, but he uses his cleverness. He's way behind running. No one's ever gotten the flag down from that pole in 18 years. Pull out a pin, flagpole falls over. Cap's like, I got it. I'm going to take a ride now. Thanks. Little things like that. And there's a lot of good banter between him and Tommy Lee Jones. Tommy Lee Jones is excellent in this movie. He's the perfect opposite, the perfect person to, like, push Cap to be who Cap is because, he doesn't think he can pull it off. And then the grenade sequence is one of my favorites. That really, really tells you Cap is. Cap is all about everyone but him. I'm here to protect my people, to serve. And he dives on that grenade without question. Tommy Lee Jones' reference is now the big dude that, like, looks like the star. He's like, yeah, that's what you would need. But you need that and a little heart, and, throws out the grenade, and that guy bolts quicker than anybody. And Cap jumps in there and kind of wins Tommy Lee over a little bit, but doesn't quite get it. Then he becomes Cap, and just from there you just kind of run. But the way they establish the character so well, especially in these early films, they really, that's Marvel's wheelhouse, is their character building of their main characters. Knock it out of the park here. Chris Evans just does an absolutely brilliant job. I also love how the relationship between him and Stanley Tucci kind of comes together, and it ends up being a critical piece in what I think makes Cap who Cap is, because when Stanley Tucci gets murdered, as he's dying, he just kind of points to Cap's heart. And he's like, there. Like, that's who you are. Don't forget, I picked you to be in this because of your heart. And that sticks with Cap forever. Something similar, maybe, that happens to another Avenger. Maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. I don't know. Absolutely love Chris Evans and his relationship with most of the characters. He's just so good on screen. Hugo Weaving, who plays Red Skull, absolutely brilliant. I love the fact that they used practical makeup to create Red Skull for everywhere except here. This is the only CGI spot, tip of his nose, in the entire face, and he looks brilliant. I was shocked at how much Hugo Weaving was in the movie. Totally forgot how much he wears his human mask face, or his face mask. But when he finally does reveal it, oh man, it's one of the best scenes. That is the breakout, and it's him and Cap, and they are on alternate bridges that are pulled apart, and you got all these flames, and it's just so beautiful. And then you finally get the reveal, and he throws the mask, and Bucky's like, you don't have one of those, do you? Like, the comedy in this movie just pops up in all the right moments when you least expect it. But Hugo Weaving is phenomenal, just far and away from just the look. I think he's, because it's so early on, we forget how great of a villain he was. He is strong, he is smart, he is batshit crazy. But he even though he's crazy, he never loses focus. And that makes him very dangerous. And when you give him power, that makes him even more dangerous. And he is just such he's one of the better executed villains in the world. And he's not dead, guys. I always thought, like, at the end of the movie, when he's holding the Tesseract, he just disintegrates into electricity. But if you really pay attention, you can see some rainbow stuff going on in there. I think he's been teleported, which means Red Skull is still out there somewhere. Maybe he comes back at some point in Avengers 4 or Infinity War. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to bring people back from the dead, but he's not dead, I don't think. When you really watch what happens to him at the end, it looks more like an Asgardian teleport than just bursting into, like, electricity. Kind of like Dr. Manhattan. But Hugo Weaving, fantastic as Red Skull. Haley Atwell, who plays Peggy Carter, also brilliant. So strong. So powerful. Especially at this time, to have a woman character be that strong to go up against Tommy Lee Jones. That's why I love Tommy Lee, because he's not just the polar opposite of what Cap's trying to do, he's also the polar opposite of Haley Atwell's Peggy Carter. They bump heads a lot, but it leads to really good things. And Haley Atwell is great on screen. Same thing. She is just so good with every scene that she's in. She draws your attention. Her chemistry with Cap is off the hook. I mean, you literally wait the entire movie for them to kiss. And everything about it. I mean, Save Me a Dance when he's flying the plane into the. You gotta save me that last dance, and he's got the picture, and it's all the heartwarming stuff comes from the Peggy Carter storyline. But like I said, she's also super strong, man. She knows what she wants. She knows what's right to do. Sometimes she goes over Tommy Lee Jones's head, i.e., the mission to go save Bucky. And you get that from a really, really strong female character. And it's one of those things that kind of drives everybody nuts. That Marvel didn't do the female superhero movie first before Wonder Woman, because they've created so many strong women superheroes. I say what you want, man. Peggy Carter's a superhero. She got her own show, and she was great. One of the first Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I love Peggy Carter, love Haley Atwell. She is the emotional heartbeat of this movie, without a doubt. As I mentioned, Tommy Lee Jones, fantastic. Sebastian Stan, not a ton for him to do. That's why I really would have liked to have seen a mission with Bucky rather than that montage. Because Cap doesn't get a ton of time with Bucky, but when he is on screen with them, you get the feeling that these guys have been friends forever. The way they look out for each other. And I love that switch in the movie too, right? When Cap's getting his butt beat because dude in the movie theater is like hooting and hollering and making jokes about the war newsreels. And while Cap's getting his ass beat, boom, Bucky comes in, saves the day. Then they don't see each other for a really long time. And the next time they do, Steve is no longer Steve. He's Captain America, and he's saving Bucky. Bucky's like, oh my, like, whoa, what did they feed you? Type stuff, as his reactions are great. I love Sebastian Stan. It was a good baseline. Really shines when we get to the next Captain America movie. That's for sure. And then Toby Jones, who plays Dr. Arnim Zola, the perfect sidekick to Hugo Weaving's Red Skull. He seems like he's the brains of everything, right? He's creating the weapons, and he feels like he can hold that on Red Skull. Like, he's really, really important. But Red Skull just looks at him as like, you're a sidekick who can do some things that I can't, but I understand what's going on. And because Red Skull's so smart, he neutralizes Toby Jones's Dr. Zola continually. The best sequence for me with Dr. Zola is when he's in interrogation and he's being interrogated by Tommy Lee Jones, and he's just trying to entice him, and that whole back and forth is so good. It's so good. But yeah, that's really it. That's all. I mean, there's tons to say, but I don't want to talk for 45 minutes. We're almost at 20. But yeah, I mean, just this cast is just so good, and this is such a great starting point to the universe. Because like I said, Cap really starts the world building. Iron Man opened the door and dropped the hint. But if you put Cap at the beginning, all of a sudden you're seeing a world start to grow right from one movie. And I'm telling you, you're going to see a trend watching this that leads up to Avengers that could work. And it's a formula that someone else maybe could have used. Marvel's just so smart, man. I love everything they do. You're never going to find me brutally talk about one of these movies. And Captain America certainly isn't one, which is funny because the first time I saw it, I was a little unsure. Because it doesn't follow the same kind of cadence as some of the other movies at that point. Even the opening, right? Just looking for Cap in the ice and finding the ship in the ice doesn't feel like a superhero movie. You almost feel like you're going on like some kind of like adventure or like like being out in the elements kind of movie. Almost kind of like The Thing. You kind of get like that kind of a feel. And there's a lot of that early on in Marvel. They kind of play in a bunch of different places, and Cap plays in all the right spots. Watching him become Captain America, right, where he's just like hey, go buy bonds. He seems so uncomfortable, but then he starts to embrace it, and it's kind of funny, and you like watching that. But then when he finally gets to be Cap, and he becomes Captain America, and when he comes rolling in with Bucky and those guys, boom, that's the moment Cap starts becoming Cap. And then, of course, this movie also gave us a big lead-in. It's funny because a lot of the Cap post-credit sequences, I think come directly from movies. This one is a scene straight out of Avengers, but I love it. They kind of try to make Cap think he's back in the 40s, and they have a baseball game on the radio, and he goes, I know that game, I was there. And then he runs out into New York City in daytime, and we are off and running. Oh, man. Boom, there it is. You start there. I really do think Captain America, the First Avenger, is the perfect starting point for all the Marvel movies. That's where we start, and now we are 1 in, 17 to go, and then Avengers Infinity War. So now it's your turn to talk. I know it's been a long time since Cap came out, so I'm figuring most of you saw the movie. So why don't you hit those comments and tell me what you thought. Did you like it? Did you love it? Have you ever watched it first? Have you ever done the chronological order thing and watched it first? Did you see why this movie works better first than even Iron Man does? Please hit the comments. Let me know all of those thoughts. If you liked my video, please thumbs up me. And if you're new here, welcome. I hope you are hopping right into the shotgun seat with me for the next 18 days, taking this ride down memory lane. But if you're new, also make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell so you know every time I make a new Infinity War Countdown movie video. Infinity War Countdown video. Or just any video in general. If you hit the bell, you will get an alert every time I do that. So that's it, man. We have come to the end of our first of many in the Seaman's Infinity War Countdown. So for the Seaman Cinema Sit-Down, I am the Seaman, and I am signing off. Peace!